Can you hear me okay, Dr. Zimmerman?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's so good to have you here today. So for everybody watching, Dr. Zimmerman is a best-selling author who owns a speaking, training, and executive coaching company. And today he's going to teach us how to develop self-confidence, which he says is the absolute bottom line in our pursuit of success, which I'm really excited to dive into. So welcome, Dr. Zimmerman.
I'm glad to be here. Great topic, and the whole summit has been wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. So I want to start out with a really basic question, which is, why is self-confidence important for business owners or for entrepreneurs?
Well, there's a basic premise in psychology that certainly applies to entrepreneurs big time. And that is one sentence: you perform exactly as you see yourself. If you see yourself as mediocre, nothing special, I have no particular talents or gifts, that's exactly how you end up performing. If you see yourself as gifted, passionate, confident, willing to go forward, you perform that way. And basically, nobody outperforms their own self-image. You perform exactly as you see yourself.
Oh, I love that line. Nobody outperforms their self-image. You perform exactly as you see yourself. That is so good. So what gets in the way of self-confidence, especially for business owners and entrepreneurs? Why is that difficult for us?
Well, one of the biggest things is something I call a mind binder. Mind binder is a negative thing we tell ourselves over and over again. It might be something like, I can't lose weight. I can't make good decisions. I'll never get ahead. There's nothing special about me. I can't remember names. There are thousands of those. And to the extent that you think them or even utter them, our mind tends to believe them and act accordingly. And so I tell people to be extremely consciously aware of what things they're telling themselves that will be destructive and negative, to identify them. And once you do, stop saying them. But if you accidentally do think them or say them, then you need to neutralize them. One way to do that is say, cancel. Or it might be you do just the opposite. You tell yourself, I'll never get ahead. Instead of saying that, start uttering, I'm in the process of getting better. I'm moving ahead. I'm making good decisions. Because those thoughts, those mind binders, become the controlling mechanism.
I love that you call them mind binders, because that's exactly what it's doing. It's just binding your mind up like that, keeping you on that path, which is not a good path if you're saying things like that to yourself.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to succeed if your mind is filled with all those obstacles and mind binders. That's succeeding, whether it's your relationships, your business, your ideas. You can't have those things working against you.
Oh, that's so good. What are some, do you have any tips for people that are working on canceling those negative thoughts, but have just had it ingrained for years and they're having a hard time remembering to even cancel?
Yeah. First of all, start becoming aware of the mind binders you're telling yourself or saying out loud. You can even ask some friends, colleagues to watch you, listen to you, and let you know when they hear them. So first of all, you got to be aware you're even doing it.
Okay.
Start catching yourself, have others catch you. I would exactly write them down, so you're aware of those things. They're ticklers, if you, in a sense, to catch your attention. And then once you've identified them and written them down, write something that reverses it. Instead of saying, I can't remember names, it might be you write down, I'm getting better at remembering names. Instead of saying, I just can't save money, I'm becoming more effective at the use of money. Because what you plant in the mind over time, first comes the statement, secondly, the repetition, thirdly, the belief of that statement, and then fourth, the action.
Love it. So we have to actually believe it. We can't just be, I guess the first step, like you said, is awareness and saying it, but then believing it is really a big part of it.
And that's tricky. People say, well, I just don't feel confident. I don't feel positive. At this point, I tell people feelings are irrelevant. Feelings, when I tell my coaching clients, your feelings get a vote in your decisions. They don't get a veto.
Oh, that's good.
It's one factor in decision making. And so someone saying, I don't feel like it, that's irrelevant. Feelings are just a piece of the decision, not the whole decision. And in the beginning, you won't believe these things. But belief comes through repetition of statement, repetition, repetition, repetition.
Ooh, that's good. And I also love that you're not trying to lie to yourself and say, if you are bad at names, you're not trying to say, no, I'm really good at names. You're saying I'm getting better at names. So it's
Yes.
something that you can still believe, even if you aren't good at names yet, or whatever that thing is that you're trying to believe or trying to shift.
Yeah, I'm not saying you lie to yourself. Exactly right. You caught the
Mm.
point. I'm getting better at moving in the right direction. I'm becoming more confident, more capable.
Sorry, fixing the lighting here.
Yeah. And if sometimes I tease people, I'll say, well, if you don't think that's just not true of me, you're telling yourself the truth in advance.
Oh, that's a great way to put that. It's not that you're lying to yourself. You're telling yourself the truth in advance. That's so
Right.
good. I love that. So what are some other ways? So canceling out those negative thoughts and trying to make them neutral, if not positive, at least making them neutral thoughts. What are some other ways that we can build and maintain our self-confidence, especially when it comes to business?
Yeah. I recommend a procedure called survey your strengths. And that is, I used to be a professor. The last many years, I've been an executive coach, professional speaker. But I would tell my students that if you're going to a job interview and they ask you about what are you good at, and you don't have an answer, how do you expect them to hire you? You'd better be the first
Mhm.
person that knows very well all your strengths. And so I would advise anybody, take a piece of paper and write down all the things you're good at. Write down 10, 50, 100, 200 things you're good at.
Mm.
The longer the list, the more confidence you're going to have and more success as a result you're going to have. If you can't think of a
That's
lot
so
of strengths, give yourself a few days, add a few every day. Ask people that know you, who like you, who respect you. What do you see as strengths in me? They may be seeing things you never even thought about.
Oh, that's great.
Survey your strengths.
Wow. Everybody listening, I want to challenge you to do that. Go and write at least 100 things that you're good at. I've done that before with accomplishments. I wrote out, I think it was 100 things, maybe it was 50, but I wrote out a list of things I'd accomplished before. And after I got like 5 or maybe 10 in there, I was like running out of things to write about. And it took me several days to come up with more things. And I had to start putting like things like tying my shoes, like really simple things. But at the end of that, I definitely felt way more empowered and connected to what I actually am good at. And so I haven't done that exercise in a long time. And I love the idea of not accomplishments, but looking at what your strengths are, strength surveying. I'm so excited to do this exercise later.
Absolutely. When I'm doing workshops, I often give people a little questionnaire that lists 50 strengths, circle every one that you have, and then they start adding another 10, another 20, another 30. And when people can't think of the strengths, it doesn't really mean they don't have the strengths. They're just out of practice.
Yeah.
They haven't thought about it. They haven't given much time to it. And if you can't see your own strengths, then don't expect somebody else to pick up on all of those. You've got to be aware of those things. It has nothing to do with ego, arrogance, none of that stuff. Confidence and arrogance are quite different. It's simply a knowledge and acknowledgement of what I have going for me.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that was actually going to be my next question, is for people that confuse the two or think, oh, this is conceited. What would I guess that's what you would say to it, right? Is that confidence and arrogance are not the same.
Yeah, arrogance is all about me trying to impress you because I'm not that impressed with myself. If I have confidence, I don't have to prove it. I don't have to seek attention. It is just there. It's who I am as an individual. So confidence is about me. Arrogance is more about you.
Oh, that's good. So staying focused on who we're trying to serve and our strengths that are going to help us get there. It sounds like that's really the key to not being arrogant with our confidence.
And typically, people with high ego, arrogance, those are usually signs of low self-esteem. That people aren't that secure with themselves. So if I can play the game of impressing somebody else, maybe that will convince me that I'm okay. It's not a very healthy game.
Love it. I'd love to know if anybody here is experiencing that or has experienced that, especially in your business, where you feel like you're seeking out validation from other people because you're not quite at the level that you're at. I know I've definitely been guilty of that, especially in the beginning of my journey in my business. I guess actually that would be another question is, do you have any tips for anybody that's brand new to starting out in business and they're feeling like, how do I cultivate confidence in what I'm doing being so new in this place in the marketplace?
Well, if you're starting out in business, besides writing out all of those strengths, I'm presuming that you have an idea, something you want to sell, provide a service, a good, something like that. But one of the things I think is underutilized is find people who are highly successful in business, perhaps in your niche area, and interview them. I find that truly successful people feel honored to be asked those questions. What worked for you? What got in your way? What did you learn? What would you pass along? It's different than interviewing for a job. Then you're trying to get something and trying to impress somebody. Here you're trying to impress nobody. You're coming as a person, honoring them, that I respect you so much. I think you have some things I could learn from you. And I have talked to so many rich, famous, successful people and never been turned down once.
Wow. That's amazing.
People, in a sense, it gives them a chance not to brag, but people love to tell their story. Here's what worked for me. Here's why I fell flat in my face. Here's what I would suggest. Don't do this. Those can be nuggets that can save you years off your learning curve.
Wow. Yeah. And you're right. I think a lot of people are happy to share that kind of stuff for free. Yeah. And so it's kind of like getting free coaching when you do it that way, or free mentorship.
It sure is. Yep.
That's incredible. So when it comes to relating with other people, it sounds like finding people that are successful and the areas that we want to be successful in and figuring out how they got there is a really good way to make sure that we're putting the good stuff in our mind. But what are some other ways that we can, or I guess, how do we know that we're surrounding ourselves with the right people to keep our mind safe so that we don't have those doubts creeping in all the time?
Well, I think people fall into two categories, what I call toxic and nourishing. Mm-hmm. And when Mama said when we were growing up, choose your friends carefully, she was right. Mm-hmm. It's almost impossible to be highly confident, highly successful, and hang around losers. When I'm joking with some coaching clients, I'll say, don't take financial advice from a person that's broke.
That's a good tip.
People like that are always giving advice. They have no credibility, no experience. So choose who you hang around with very carefully. I'm a big proponent of mastermind groups. I've been a part of 2 groups for 2 decades. And I often tell people, give me 5 minutes and I can mention 5 ideas I picked up from those groups that made me $5 million. Ideas I never would have thought of had we not been sitting around talking, brainstorming. But these were all highly successful people, passionate, confident, motivated, not threatened to share their ideas, to bounce ideas back and forth. And I found that to be critical. Toxic people are those who want to complain, pick, put down, criticize. Nourishing ones are ones that believe in you. They believe in your potential. They think you're worth investing some of their time in. The ones that want to see you succeed. So the interesting thing is toxic people are always available. And nourishing
no shortage of that in the world.
They don't. And nourishing ones are always busy. So you're going to have to seek them out.
Do you have any tips for people that have toxic people in their life right now that maybe are starting to identify, okay, I know this person is probably on that toxic side. Do we get rid of the person?
Yeah, great question. Strategy I advocate is called creative neglect.
Ooh.
Let's say someone calls you. You may have a relative, a friend, a colleague, whatever. And you know people like this who will call you every day and complain about this, complain about that, gripe, depressed, sad, whatever. And you listen and you listen. Sometimes you suggest something and they never do anything. to make any changes. They just gripe, complain, whatever. So if your life has people like that in it, or bringing you down and they're not listening to you anyway, creative neglect is saying something like this. They call you, let's say, 3 times a week. And you begin to say, oh, I can hear you're really in a tough spot right now. I wish I had more time. I'm in your corner. Wish you the best. Talk to you later. Goodbye. You do that enough, politely, not rudely. Do that enough, and they will find somebody else to gripe to, or they'll start changing their behavior.
Oh, that's so good.
And if they are responding and taking some of your advice and moving forward, then you listen, you encourage, you reinforce. But if all they want to do is vent, you cut that short. Creative neglect.
Oh, that's so good. Because it's not ghosting. You're not just, getting rid of that person and never talking to them again. But
No.
it's like setting a boundary. You're not allowing space for all the toxic and like the venting, like you said, the victim mindset, all that like ranting that I think a lot of people like to lean on friends for. Would really, I think, also encouraging them to go see a therapist if they're calling you to vent all the time might also be a good alternative for that.
Remember the 3 R's. Reinforced responses recur. And so if someone is griping every day and you listen every day and you listen and listen, you're reinforcing that. But if you only show interest, attention, encouragement to when they're positive, moving in the right direction, they respond to that. Reinforced responses recur. And what I've found in my research, you can take the most negative, toxic, difficult person imaginable. If you will do this for about 2 months, they will change their behavior.
Wow. This is like behavioral psychology. Like this is kind of like training an animal almost.
Yeah. People do respond to how you respond.
Wow. That's so empowering because now we don't have to be victims to people that want to come into our life and kind of be energy vampires, just kind of suck the life out of us. But instead we get to set those boundaries. And
Yes.
I love the creative neglect, just not allowing space for the negativity. And I love how over time, when you stick to that, it actually makes them shift their behavior, either take the negativity somewhere else or become more positive. That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. You set some boundaries that I will respond to certain kinds of behaviors, not others.
Love that. So I've heard you, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Something else I've heard you talk about is constructive risk taking. Can you explain what that is and how that relates?
Well, everybody has a comfort zone. You all know the terminology on this call. And I often will draw a circle on a PowerPoint slide, show people. Inside your comfort zone may be that you have the same policies in your company. You sit in the same place in the meeting room. The same people talk at the meeting. The same ones never say a word. The same ones gossip in the hallways afterwards. Same people sit in the same place in church every week. People have these comfort zones.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with that. We can kind of be comfortable, relaxed, secure. But anything you want more of in life, you want to make more money, you want a more successful business, you want a better marriage, you want better health, whatever you want more of, always is outside the comfort zone. And so that means you have to make some changes that will bring about what you want. So I want better health. What do I have to do differently? That's outside my comfort zone. It may be getting my butt off the couch and go to the gym twice a week. Whether or not I want to do it is irrelevant.
Love that.
It may be that I want to be in a better financial situation. Then I decide what items I'm going to stop buying. Even though I might want them, I don't need them. But it's taking a constructive risk. Someone is being toxic with you, putting you down. Sometimes, for example, a person might be sarcastic. I'll use a comment like this. That sounded like a put down. Did you mean it that way?
Oh, that's good.
It's a little bit of a risk instead of just letting them trample over me. So that means you're going to get hurt once in a while if you take a risk. You're going to fail once in a while. But that's part of the learning process. It's part of the success process. You've had people on this summit that talk about it, that there are very few overnight successes, very few people that go from start zero to great success without an obstacle.
Yeah.
The difference is if you take a risk and you learn from it, you're better the next time. What the losers do is they'll take stupid risks and not learn anything.
Ah, can you break down the difference between a stupid risk versus, I guess, a calculated risk or a more constructive risk?
Yeah, I asked myself 2-3 questions to see if it's a worthwhile risk. I asked myself, for example, is it necessary? Well, yeah, if I want to get ahead of my relationship or my business, I better do this and this. I can't do it the same way. Is it necessary? Secondly, is it likely to work based on your experience, your intuition, your knowledge, your skills? What's your best guess? Is it likely to work? Thirdly, is it worth it? You could, for example, go into business and do very well, make a lot of money, but you focus all your attention on that and lose your relationships in the process. Not worth it. So I have to ask myself those 3 questions, and I have to have yeses to all 3 to make it a constructive risk.
Oh, that's so good. Courtney put that in the chat for anybody watching right now who maybe didn't catch it all. Is it necessary? Is it likely to work? And is it worth it?
Yeah.
That is very helpful. I'm definitely writing that down.
So it's a little thing you can ask yourself every time you're looking at a new decision, a new risk. And your head and gut will tell you pretty much, yep, go forward or leave that one alone.
Love it. I think that is a really crucial part too, is like you said, listening to your gut. So I love that you're taking a logical approach, but then you're also looking at, how does this make me feel? Are my alarm bells going off? Which I guess sometimes we can have alarm bells going off, but that's more so our fear because we're getting out of our comfort zone versus our actual intuition.
Well, you said something important. It's the head and the gut both. And if you go too much one side or the other, it's not going to work. A whole bunch of people out there who are totally driven by feelings. Well, I don't feel like it. I don't want to. Again, irrelevant. That's a piece of the decision-making process, not the whole piece. The other part is the head. They have to go together.
So
And
good.
by the way, in terms of risk-taking, because I'm not comfortable doing that. Insight, no risk is ever comfortable in the beginning. If it was comfortable, you'd already be doing it. Yeah,
so true. That's so good. It's kind of reminding me of that whole metaphor of getting up off the couch and going to the gym. It is definitely not comfortable to do that. But the more that you do that, the better you start to feel. And then the easier it is to go to the gym. You start to actually want to go to the gym and your body craves it. You love the endorphins that you feel. And so I think that's really with anything in life, that you're right. It's not going to feel good in the beginning, but once you get up, or it's not going to feel comfortable in the beginning. But once you start getting into that habit, it just gets easier and easier.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Just
Love
a reverse mind binder, when you're telling yourself negative, is a positive affirmation. And most people know about those. I've worked a lot with Olympic athletes doing sports psychology with them. And almost all the gold medal winners will swear by this technique. They tell themselves positive affirmations. I'm number 1. I'm a winner. I can do it. I'm in first place. I'm a champ. Now, they may not be that yet, but they get themselves to believe it, so they do it. Oh,
that's good. Do you feel like that can sometimes cultivate an unhealthy obsession with ourselves, or like an arrogance?
It's possible, but the world is pretty good at putting us down if we get too big-headed.
It's true.
Losing friends or people staying away or saying, hey, cut it out, buddy.
So that's your sign
yeah, the world's pretty good at tampering us down if we get out of line too much.
Love it. I love that. So we have permission to make ourselves feel good and give ourselves those positive affirmations and not worry about, oh, I'm getting conceited or I'm getting too full of myself.
And if people are concerned about that, give yourself a new affirmation. I'm confident but humble.
Ooh, I love that. Building it into your affirmations.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Because whatever you affirm over and over again, you increase dramatically the chance of becoming that kind of person. When people say, that's just the way I am. And one thing I hate about personality tests is people will cop out and say, well, that's the way I am. I can't help it. No. What those tests tell you are these are your natural tendencies. Doesn't say you cannot do other things. For example, I always test as an introvert on those tests. But my whole job, my career has been on stage, giving 3,000 presentations, always in public audiences. It doesn't mean that I can't do it and do it very well. I have. It just means that you have to work a little bit harder to pump yourself up and get into that mode and do it.
That's amazing. I love that you test as an introvert, but you didn't let that shift who you see yourself as, or you didn't let that be a limitation for yourself. That's incredible.
For example, as an introvert, I would rather sit down, you and I, and have a glass of wine and talk, or a cup of coffee, or anybody else, and just have a great conversation. Rather do that than go to a party with 50 people and mingle and do small talk, which I find irritating and a waste of time. But it's not a right or wrong thing. It's just that I get more energized by having a deep conversation with one person than chit chat with 50. So it's simply your tendency. Doesn't mean you can't do something different.
So good. This has been so empowering. I've gotten so many nuggets from this. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. We have just sorry, go ahead.
No, I thank you very much.
Yeah, I was just going to say we have just a few minutes left. So I was wondering if you have any other golden nuggets or like a big juicy tip that you like to give people when it comes to building self-confidence.
One thing is, if you're an entrepreneur, individual, you're trying some new things, you're making some steps in the right direction, you're having some success, and people praise you, say, great job, or that was very insightful, really cool. Learn to say thank you. Too many people will throw away the praise, say, no big deal, it just happened, anybody could have done it, it wasn't that much work. That's disrespecting of their feedback, but it's also disempowering to yourself. And that is when people praise you, say thank you, because if you don't acknowledge it, it doesn't go from your conscious to your subconscious mind, which means it does not build your confidence or your success rate. So learn to accept praise when it's given to you. People say, well, what if they're just buttering you up? They don't really mean it. And they're just giving you false compliments. That's their problem. I'd say thank you anyway.
That's amazing. Yeah, I know I'm bad at that sometimes. I'll deflect and say,
Yes.
I'll either turn the attention back on them and compliment something about them, or like how you said, oh, it's no big deal. Anybody could do it. So I love that idea of just accept it. Thank you is a full sentence.
Exactly. Remember my first comment, you perform exactly as you see yourself. If I'm deflecting the compliments, oh, no big deal, or you really should take, if I'm deflecting or denying it, I'm in a sense revealing a bit of lacking in confidence, that I don't quite accept it because I'm not quite sure I'm that good. Learn to accept the praise. Say thank you.
That is so good. Thank you so much, Dr. Zimmerman, for being on here today. Courtney is going to drop a link in the chat for more information and to connect with you and grab your free gift. And we're just so grateful to have you and your wisdom today. Thank you again for sharing everything.
This has been fun. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.